I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Hey everybody, I'm here today to do a point-by-point commentary on Ray Comfort's latest production, Evolution vs. God, his screed against evolutionary theory and atheists. It's going to be a long one, so let's get going. Now it gets off to a good start. I like the intro beats, good choice. But then the title comes up, and what's with the kerning here? I mean, the V and the O don't even know each other, and the I and the O are giving each other back rubs up here. Come on, people. This is amateur stuff. Okay. Maybe I'm a little too geared up and prepared to hate this thing. Let me dial it back a bit. Alright, this is a slick production. It's put together well, and I think it will be convincing to some people. But I think most people will come away with the same impression. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something off about this thing. There's something going on here. And that's why I've made this video, to point out the tricks and traps and games that Comfort plays in the production of this video. He does it in all his productions, as a matter of fact. He asks a lot of questions of people, and I will answer most of them here because I think the type of answers I would give are the type of answers that wouldn't even make the final edit of this production because they don't allow him to paint the picture that he wants to paint. Okay, let's do this thing for real. He starts off by asking various people who identify themselves as atheists and say they support the concept of evolution if they think evolution is a belief and when they began to believe it.
You believe in evolution? Do you think it's a belief? Or do you think it's a belief? When did you start to believe? When did you start believing? Do you believe evolution? Is evolution a belief?
His use of belief and believe is important because he wants to reduce evolution's standing as a science. It doesn't matter to him that all facts have a component of someone either believing it or not believing it. I believe in the laws of gravitation. The reality of gravitational laws can be demonstrated independently of whether or not I believe in them, just like evolution. But according to Comfort standards, it would still be my belief. He asks,
Are you a strong believer? Are you a strong believer?
This again is an attempt to diminish evolution as a science and at the same time draw a parallel with religious belief. My answer is no, that I'm not a strong believer, but I believe that evolution is strongly supported by the information we have gathered through the process of science. Next, he presents this card setting the standard for the scientific method.
A scientific method is based on the collection of data through observation and experimentation. Science Daily.
He asks people for observable evidence of evolution.
Could you give me some observable evidence that evolution is true? Something I don't have to receive by faith.
Yeah.
Some observable evidence. I don't want something I have to accept by faith. I want it to be observable. So could you give me one piece of observable evidence for Darwinian evolution? I just want one observable evidence for Darwinian evolution. Observable evidence, something where we don't have to exercise faith. Something that can be observed, like the scientific process, observable.
He interrupts people when they talk about the fossil record or long periods of time.
Hang on, I can't. That's 65 million years ago, so that can't be observed. So it's quite a long time, millions of years. So it can't be observed. A couple of millions? How is that observable? So Darwinian evolution is not observable, it's not scientific.
Things that happened a long period of time ago are just not observable to him. Now, first off, notice his quote, which he placed in order to establish a baseline for the scientific method, says the collection of data through observation. Did he ask people for examples of evolutionary data that has been collected or can be collected through observation? No, he did not. Because collecting data through observation is a very different thing than the impression he wants to give. He wants his viewers to think direct observation is the only form of observation that is accepted in the scientific method. Anyone in the sciences knows this not to be true. Indirect observation is very common and in many circumstances a necessity. How did we first learn how big the Earth is? Did someone walk the Earth counting out his perfectly spaced paces? No, they observed the length and angles of shadows and mathematically calculated the size of the Earth through indirect observation. The evaporation of water in a glass is too slow for the human eye to register, but it does occur. We can observe the results of the evaporation, noting the water line going down and down over time, even though we can't see the actual water evaporating. Observation in general, which is what the scientific method asks for, would yield answers that Comfort would be hard-pressed to deal with, which is why he insisted on this false standard of direct observation. He then goes on to talk about the evolution into different kinds while continuing to use the false standard of it being directly observable.
Darwin said there'd be a change of kinds over many years, so could you give me one example of observable evidence of a change of kinds? Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution where he said there'd be a change of kinds? A change of kinds. Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds? Can you think of any observable evidence where there was a change of kinds?
At one point, he says the scientific method says it has to be observable and repeatable.
The scientific method must be observable and repeatable.
This, of course, is not true at all. There's an often mentioned bit of misinformation that says the scientific method requires something be repeatable in order to be considered scientific. The scientific method requires something to be testable. One method of testing is repeatable experimentation, of course. Another method of testing theories is testing the accuracy of the predictions the theory lays out. If there is believed to be an ancestral link between a number of species, evolution makes predictions about what we should learn about them, the shared DNA, the location in the strata, and whatnot. Confirming these predictions is a test of evolutionary theory. Repeatability is not required. Here, Comfort asks the most scientifically disingenuous question I have ever heard.
Could you give me an example of Darwinian evolution, not adaptation or speciation, but a change of kinds?
Not speciation, not adaptation. Why does he rule out these things? Because they complicate things for him. You see, adaptation is part of the foundation of evolution, so he has to disallow that. And speciation is a core point of Darwin's theory, so he needs to shy away from that fact. When given examples of changes of species, he repeatedly says,
That's not Darwinian evolution. That's not a change of kinds, is it? It's still bacteria. There's no change of kinds.
You asked me to tell you when I've watched one species evolve into another, isn't that right?
No, one kind into another. There's 14 different definitions of species. So I want a change of kind. That's not Darwinian evolution. There's been no change of kinds. They're still birds. There's no change of kinds. That's within the kind. Could you give me observable evidence, which is the scientific method, for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds? So that's called adaptation. It's not Darwinian evolution. There's no change of kinds. There's no different animal involved. I want something that shows me Darwin's belief in a change of kinds is scientific. Darwin spoke of a change of kind. Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution where there's a change of kind?
He keeps calling for a change of kind. He says if it's not a change of kind, it's not Darwinian evolution. He's putting forth that evolution into a different species is not Darwinian evolution. This is a new concept, unique only to him. He has totally redefined what evolution is. You see, he says Darwin spoke of a change of kind, not species. But in fact, what Darwin spoke of was a change of species. The book is called On the Origin of Species. Kind is a broad term that is used for many different reasons, sometimes just to distinguish one population from another by their characteristics. Red birds from bluebirds. At other times, it's used to distinguish species from each other or families from each other. Kind isn't even an option in the taxonomic hierarchy. We have life, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, genus, species. Is that how it goes? Kind's not in there. Kind is in the Bible. That's where he got it from. Comfort has made up a standard here, and most of his interviewees allow him to get away with it. P.Z. Myers does take him to task on it, but is ignored.
These are changes of kinds.
They're still fish.
When answers are given to Comfort, he dismisses them because Darwin's finches are still birds, and those fish are still fish. They're not a so-called change of kind. But what he doesn't grasp, or he's ignoring, and no one points out to him, is that human beings are still great apes. We are still primates. The evolution from a common ancestor that we and our primate cousins went through was just a change of species, not a change of kind in any special sense. Now, after that atrocious discussion of misdescribed evolution, he goes on to ask about intelligent design.
Do you believe in intelligent design? Do you think everything is intelligently designed?
Since the people say they don't believe a rose is intelligently designed, he asked them if they could make one. It's a juvenile bit of snark that allows him to insult the people's intelligence.
Okay, you seem like an intelligent person, so I'm going to ask you something. How would you make a rose? Hang on. No, it's not intelligently designed, so you should be able to whip me up a rose real quick. All the geniuses in the world can't make a grain of sand from nothing. We don't know where to start. So how could you say everything's not intelligently designed? Where does that leave you on the scale of intelligence if you say everything's not intelligently designed and you can't even make a rose?
Here Ray Comfort once again uses the disingenuous technique of using an alternate definition of a term in order to undermine his interviewees. Intelligent design does not mean designed by somebody very smart. So when someone says they don't believe a rose is intelligently designed, they're not saying they believe it was designed by someone stupider than them. Intelligent design means that something came about through a directed cause. That someone or something that has intelligence, that is cognizant, that is sentient, guided that development with a goal in mind. That's what intelligence means here. It doesn't mean smartness. So to say that since all the geniuses in the world can't do it, they must not be that smart, or whoever did do it must be smarter than them, is disingenuous at best. But it's petty on the face of it. One of the speakers asked Comfort why he thinks no one is teaching intelligent design at UCLA, and he says it's because they aren't allowed to. And she says, we can teach anything we want. Comfort then inserts this card.
There's a reason intelligent design isn't taught in our learning institutions. According to physicist Victor Stenger, the legal staff of Freedom from Religion Foundation, a church-state watchdog group, has had remarkable success in convincing many institutions, such as school boards and town councils, that they are breaking constitutional law when they sponsor sectarian activities. That includes intelligent design. When the authorities can't be convinced, Freedom from Religion Foundation sues, and it wins more often than not.
Now the first thing I noticed was this bracketed section here. This means the words were not in the original quote and were added for clarification. I also noticed the ellipses outside the bracket, which means something was removed from the quote that was in the original. I found the article the quote came from, and here it is. The legal staff of the Freedom from Religion Foundation has had remarkable success in convincing many institutions such as school boards and town councils that they are breaking constitutional law when they sponsor sectarian activities such as prayers on public property. People can pray, but government can't promote it. When the authorities can't be convinced, the Freedom from Religion Foundation sues and wins more often than not. As you can see, the quote was specifically talking about prayer and government sponsorship of it. Also, school boards and town councils aren't the arbiters of what gets taught on university campuses. The article this quote comes from was about Eric Hayden, a professor at Ball State, who was teaching a science course that was a blatant promotion of his religious worldview. The Freedom from Religion Foundation was notified and a letter was sent to the university administration. I want to note that in that same article, P.Z. Myers, who happens to be one of the people Comfort keeps putting a microphone in front of, defended Hayden's right to teach that course based on academic freedom. The university ultimately rejected the course that professor was teaching, but in an open letter, the university president wrote, "Intelligent design is overwhelmingly deemed by the scientific community as a religious belief and not a scientific theory. Therefore, intelligent design is not appropriate content for science courses. Discussions of intelligent design and creation science can have their place at Ball State in humanities or social science courses. So apparently intelligent design can be taught in universities, just not as a science course." Then he talks about vestigial organs for some reason. Some of these exchanges are just there to show someone making a mistake or not understanding something. It doesn't matter if the subject is pertinent, what matters is that they look bad. He goes on to claim that evolutionists say that the tailbone and the appendix are vestigial, but they are wrong. But what he should say is that this guy and this guy are wrong. They're the only two examples of evolutionists making that mistake that he has. He talked to all these people, but where is the footage of them making this false assertion? Where is the reference to a up-to-date evolutionary publication making these claims? Comfort now shifts his focus to ask about famous atheists. Why? What does the notoriety of an atheist have to do with anything? Well, one, he wants to show that atheists claim famous people and they lie when they do so. And also, he wants to show that famous people reject atheism. and those that don't reject atheism are losers. He uses for an example an internet meme. Yes, that benchmark of accurate group representation, the internet meme. And all of these people aren't self-proclaimed atheists. Comfort pulls up quotes from each of them, either distancing themselves from atheist groups or proclaiming some type of God belief, leaving only Ernest Hemingway as the example of a famous atheist. Now, does Comfort put up a quote of Hemingway proclaiming his atheism? No. Why bother? He's eliminated all the other ones. As far as Comfort is concerned, this is the only example of a famous atheist.
Pulled the trigger and blew out his brains. There's your poster boy when it comes to atheism.
Oh, atheism, what did you do? Oh, and Mr. Comfort, don't think I didn't notice the little addition you made to the image when you said poster boy. Remember, kids, atheism is communism. As for famous atheists, I would have said Neil deGrasse Tyson, but as Comfort claims, he does not call himself an atheist. Now, he doesn't believe in a God, and he shuns labeling. The only label he wants to put upon himself is that of a scientist, and you have to respect that. But he still doesn't believe in a God. I also would have said W.E.B. Du Bois, Penn Jillette, James Randi, Isaac Asimov, Bertrand Russell, and Joss Whedon, none of which put a gun to their head. Wait, I think Penn Jillette does that 8 times a week. And of course, I wouldn't have made the production cut. I want to make a note here that Comfort has been shifting back and forth between atheism and evolution. Comfort knows full well that not all atheists support evolution, and not all those who support evolution are atheists. But he's falsely trying to bind them together because he knows that there are some people of faith that support evolution, and he wants to create a wedge with them through negative association. Comfort then moves on to moral absolutes.
Do you believe in moral absolutes?
No, I do not believe there are moral absolutes.
Is rape absolutely wrong? Is rape wrong?
Of course I believe rape is absolutely wrong.
So there are moral absolutes.
But that doesn't make it a moral absolute. Because for something to be absolute, everyone must agree on it. More so, if something is an absolute, you shouldn't be able to break that absolute even if you wanted to. For example, the laws of physics are absolutes. I can't break them no matter how hard I try. Moral laws, on the other hand, are not absolute because people can break them at will. The reason Comfort talks about this is because he wants to say that people who believe morality is relative are more prone to break the moral laws. Now, I enjoy this exchange that Comfort has with P.Z. Myers.
Did Hitler put into practice survival of the fittest?
No,
What was he doing then?
he was murdering people.
That's survival of the fittest.
That's not survival of the fittest.
It is. It's the lion eating the antelope.
No, there's much more to evolution than just this kind of crude kill and be killed model that you have in your head.
P.Z. Myers is right, of course. What Comfort was trying to do is make broad generalizations about Hitler's actions in order to associate those actions with the personal morality of people who support evolution. Myers calls him on it and gets blown off. Even if Hitler had titled his final solution, survival of the fittest, that should no more be shackled to the supporters of evolution than a Christian who murders a physician over abortion should be directly tied to people who believe in creationism. But as you can see, Comfort is now on a mission to make evolution and those who support its veracity out as immoral and cruel. As a further illustration of this, he asked people about dogs.
You have a dog? Love your dog?
Yes, I do have dogs.
Well, your pet dog and your rotten neighbor are drowning. You'd only save one of them. Who would you save?
I'd only save one? I think I would save my dog.
I'll save my dog.
I'd go with the dog. Well, so I would want to save my dog.
Survival of the fittest?
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's just a matter of survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
If he drowns, he drowns. Big deal.
Yeah.
Now, he says you can only save one, but that doesn't mean I can't try and fail. So I would save my neighbor, and then I would go back for my dog. See, I'm the type of cruel and immoral person that doesn't believe in things like you can only save one. I'm going to go and try to save them both. But yes, I would save my neighbor first, and then I would go back for my dog. Maybe I can't save him, but I'm the type of person that will try anyway. I like to note on this dog question, the only answers he shows are from some of the youngest of his interviewees. Of the 41 total people that he talked with on this video, we get the answers from these 4, the youngest and, sorry kids, probably the least mature of the bunch. But they paint the picture he wants to paint, so they make the cut. Now we're 24 minutes into his video, and I'm not exactly sure what the purpose is of these exchanges.
You don't think God exists?
No, I do not believe a God exists. And that's because I haven't observed anything about the universe that gives me reason to believe a God exists.
Are you comfortable talking about spiritual things?
I'm perfectly comfortable discussing spiritual things. I just give those discussions less value than discussing the latest episode of Breaking Bad.
No life in you?
Yes, there's life in me.
That's your soul.
Is there life in me? You mean, is there a quantifiable thing inside my body which we call life? No. My body has properties which collectively we categorize as life, but that doesn't mean that there is a specific thing inside my body that is life. Next up for comfort is his patented "let me prove you're not a good person" discussion. Let's play along.
Are you a good person? Are you a good person, morally? Do you think you're a good person?
Yes, I am a good person.
How many lies have you told in your whole life? How many lies do you think you've told in your whole life?
I've told a ton of lies. No, wait, that's a lie because lies aren't actually matter that can be weighed. So I've told numerous lies.
What would you call me if I told lots of lies? What do you call someone who's told thousands of lies? What are you?
I don't label people so freely. It would depend on the context of lying in their lives.
Have you ever stolen something in your whole life, even if it's small? Have you ever taken something that belonged to someone else?
Yes, as a youth, I know I did.
It's called theft. So what are you?
By some standards, I would be a liar and a thief, but not by most standards that people live by in the real world. You see, I happen to know that everyone I have ever met over the age of 2 has lied about something or taken something that didn't belong to them. Everyone knows that, yet we don't walk around in life considering everyone around us as liars and thieves. Well, maybe you judge people that way, but I don't.
Have you ever used God's name in vain? Have you ever used God's name in vain? Have you ever used God's name in vain? Have you ever used God's name in vain?
First off, I don't believe there is a God, so whatever name I used in vain didn't belong to a God. Secondly, whose God's name are you talking about? Because I've said a lot of names in vain. Odds blood by Neptune's trident, by Grabthar's hammer, Christ on a bike! Which one of these matter? Because none of these gods are mine, and they are all fiction to me.
It's called blasphemy. It's very serious to use God's name as a cuss word.
Blasphemy only applies to those who believe the God is valid.
Well, if I don't believe in certain laws and still violate them, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So we're still guilty even though we deny a law exists or we even don't know about it.
Interesting premise there, but it's not the same. You see, with societal laws, there is an agreement about jurisdiction. That is, that the arbiters of those laws have the authority to enforce them with us. I may not agree to the veracity of a law, but I have agreed that they have the authority to enforce it. There is no agreement with me as to your God's existence, much less its authority over me. Your attempt to enforce your God's law on me is the equivalent of if you were from another country and you came to visit me at my home in Oakland, and you said, because in your country it is illegal to have naked art, I need to go to jail because of the pieces of Japanese art I have on my wall. Your foreign laws have no jurisdiction over me unless I choose to travel to your nation, which in this case is your religion if you didn't catch what I was throwing at you there.
Have you ever looked at a guy with lust? Have you ever looked at a woman with lust? Jesus said if you look at a woman and lust for her, you commit adultery with her in your heart. Have you ever looked at a woman with lust?
Jesus who? What authority does this Jesus person have over me? And just because this Jesus, if that is his real name, says that lusting makes someone an adulterer, I'm supposed to take that as a definition? Please! You know who gets to decide if I'm an adulterer? My wife.
By your own admission, you're a lying thief, a blasphemer, and an adulterer at heart. The Bible says no thief, no liar, no fornicator, no blasphemer, no adulterer will inherit the kingdom of God.
So, the Bible has no authority that I recognize or that you can prove to me. What does it matter?
Man, would you sell one of your eyes for $1 million? Both for $100 million?
He answered no, but I would say yes. If it were the only way to get money to save my son's life with an operation, yes, I would.
See how precious your eyes are to you, how much more precious is your life. And you're saying, I don't care if I get damned from all that which is good. Of course you care. You've got a will to live.
Yes, I care deeply about my life, and I do have a will to live, but I don't care a whit about my afterlife because I have no reason whatsoever to believe it exists.
I say that you know intuitively that creation is proof of the Creator. God has given you that inner light. So when you look at the genius of God's creative hand, you know He exists because of creation. Now let me tell you something you know intuitively. You know that creation is proof of the Creator. God's given you that light. I have a whistleblower, and it tells me that you know God exists, and the reason you choose evolution is because it gets rid of moral accountability. Lust and pornography and fornication, adultery, all just primal instincts. That's all. You're just an animal. The Bible demands moral accountability and says those things are wrong, and that's why it's not acceptable to you. That's why you're not seeking after truth.
Let me tell you something that I know intuitively. You don't know jack about what other people's motivations are. It doesn't matter if your Bible insists on moral accountability. I insist on moral accountability from myself and those around me. My friends, family, and society insist on moral accountability from me. I wouldn't associate with the people I do if I didn't feel that they had some moral accountability. So your whistleblower kind of blows.
And do you know what God did for guilty sinners so we wouldn't have to go to hell? Any idea?
You mean, do I know what you believe your God did? Go on.
God became a human being 2,000 years ago, Jesus of Nazareth, and he suffered and died on a cross, taking the punishment for the sin of the world. In his great kindness, he became a human being and suffered for us as Christ died for us. And then he rose from the dead and defeated death.
Wait, 2,000 years ago? That's not observable. Give me something I can observe. I mean, 2,000 years ago?
So it's quite a long time. How is that observable? Observable evidence, something where we don't have to exercise faith. Something that can be observed, like the scientific process, observable.
And he defeated death, so he's still alive. It must be repeatable, right?
The scientific method must be observable and repeatable. Do you have a Bible at home?
Yes.
I've been reading the Bible every day for more than 40 years. There's no mistakes in it, Mike. Any mistakes that we think are our mistakes.
Says who? You? Are people supposed to take you as an authority that the Bible has no mistakes in it? I certainly don't take you as any authority. So this statement is wholly unsupported. Okay, check out this exchange.
Could you be wrong about God's existence?
Yes. And could you be wrong about God's existence?
No.
Well, then I think you're rather closed-minded.
Well, if I said to you, could you be wrong about your wife's existence? You'd say, no, I know her. You'd say, don't be ridiculous. I know her and love her. And I know the Lord and I love the Lord.
It's not just that he knows her and he loves her. He's got videos of the wedding. He's got the kid that shares his genes and her genes. Oh, and he can bring her to a dinner party and show her to everybody. And unless he's walking around like Jimmy Stewart and Harvey, everyone there will see her. You're saying that you have a God that you know and love is like saying that you really do have a girlfriend. She just doesn't live around here. She lives in Canada, and you go see her all the time. This production then moves into a montage of statements and clips meant to make evolutionary concepts seem like flights of fancy, ignoring the underlying science and focusing on the superficial, just the way the sentences sound. Comfort then ends with this.
Darwinian evolution rests on faith. Darwinian evolution requires great faith. The knowledge of God, however, is clearly seen by all mankind.
What Comfort has shown in this production is that he wants to hold the science of evolution and the belief in a God to two very different standards. He's gone out of his way to use disingenuous language, false definitions, and heavily edited video in order to put the science of evolution in a very stark and negative light. Yet he has provided zero information or factual detail to support the belief in a God. Just broad, unsupported generalizations such as it is clearly seen in all mankind and it is intuitive. What Comfort has done, or what he's tried to do, is take the pursuit of scientific knowledge, which relies on the gathering of information by people, and having those people debate, confirm, deny, discard, and correct that information, of which there is an inherent uncertainty. And he's trying to redefine that as faith. This wouldn't just apply to evolution, but all scientific pursuits would be considered faith. While he's taken traditional faith, that is, beliefs that have no confirmation or corrective structure, and redefining that as inherent knowledge, requiring no standard of evidence. And he doesn't get to do that. Well, he can do it if he wants. He just did. But people have to call him out on it. And I just did. Thank you for your time.
Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?
Maybe you came by to congratulate me on last night's victory.
8 meters. 7. 6. It's reading right, man. Look, you're not reading it right. meters, man. 4. What the hell?